Inspiration and enthusiasm sizzled within Edward's empire-building senses. The lapping and crackling fire bound towards the very top of the fireplace, spitting across dusty floorboards on its way. The dumb rug consisting ballhide gave a distinctive scent of rusty leather that permeated the aging olfactory senses in the king's nasal appendage. Edward stormed out of the chambers of the main castle with bounding astonishment and apparent defeat in France. It appeared that the Old Alliance stood firmly in the way of his ambitions steady at this point. The alliance between Scotland and France. Edward had no idea of what would be done now. His lords and barons had abandoned his call to arms, and the Lord High Constable of England had abandoned him in the invasion of France and the treaty with Scotland. Europe was slipping away from the Plantagenet grasp yet again. They would not support his cause to crush the Scottish rebels. There was only one recourse left. He would aim his remaining forces to challenge William Wallace himself. The first major battle for Scottish independence had begun. Scotland and England had always, at least for the last 500 years, had an unspoken understanding from a Highland point of view. They had always thought they were equals in the 13th century, whereas the English always saw their allegiance as a political one. Yet it was only in the 13th century that this position became obvious, and the Scottish looked at their alliance with France for support, realising that such a trading alliance might establish a military one. King Edward I decided to attack France as a preemptive move. His barons and nobles would not support him in this, and he was thusly to turn his eyes back to the enemy in the Highlands. Today, we look back at these events and consider the barbaric and obscene. Despite all this, we persevere with our current standing as far as the North is concerned. Nicola Sturgeon continues to block Theresa May's attempt to disassociate from Europe within the context of Brexit and the SNP. They still worry about trading agreements with the other nations that have been well established. Or other financial issues predominate the argument for independence today, and not issues over the dominance of yesteryear. Apparently, our association with Sturgeon's proposal of independence created huge uncertainty. They are domineering our argument for pressing ahead at the crossroads of the United Kingdom's affairs. Article 50 needed the Queen's signature, it seems. It comes to something when royalty is such a figurehead that it can be manipulated so easily. Edward I will never have caved so easily. The assertion that Nicola Sturgeon has tunnel vision made by the Prime Minister is only indicative of the contempt of our conservative middle class dominance over the country, looking as England does to this day its subservient appendages in countries like Scotland and Wales simply as vassals and not independent nations in their own right. Sins of the Middle Ages were simply products of the time, and taken as such were only attitudes of its peoples and royalty. What today's government is a product of. Chronic cases of dissociation between state and population serve as an indication of the insecurity of these problems. These insecurities were probably brought on by daddy issues left over from the early stages of government, when the barons clubbed together to mull over what the king had recently pronounced as law. It was King Henry who felt strongly to continue the work of Magna Carta that his dad had set up. In doing this, he tried to prop up his unsustainable personality with images of himself as Edward the Confessor. His son Edward didn't do much better with international negotiations either. In trying once again to back his lost lands in France, he tried to support his own reign with legends of King Arthur, who was exceedingly popular at the time. What does our own Prime Minister represent herself as, I wonder? The Lady of the Lake? It seems she follows the path of our last female, Margaret Thatcher, although I don't even think the Iron Lady could have made such a fuck-up of the situation as May has managed to do. According to Nicola Sturgeon, language partnership has gone completely a far cry from "go back and tell your people that we have come for the benefit of peace, but are ready to fight and avenge ourselves to free our broken kingdom." It was pronounced by William Wallace at Stirling Bridge. It is this separation from determined intent to that of blatant and indiscriminate destruction, it seems, to differentiate between the outcomes of national awareness both yesterday and today. Invoking Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, for example, is less sublime note than that which invokes memory for the Old Alliance. It's more poetic and less statically stoic, for one thing. For another, it smacks of the more conservative policies. The bureaucratic backstabbing and the national understanding of pride, at least feudal societies of old, were honest about their portrayals. Apparently, Theresa May struck a blow for said conservatism when she retorted, "Politics is not a game." Perhaps a statement made only by those who are used to playing games. Either way, pride is not being respected where current government crisis is concerned. And that might be put down to the eternal quest of wealth and power, particularly as far as oil trades are concerned. Germanic mindsets have frequently held it that those who make the tough decisions thrive, while the moralistic and weak-willed stay subservient. Now, look at how the Scottish King of England were treated there. Though having said that, it's not my intention to try and uphold some moral obligation Britain might or might not hold, simply to shed some light on the realisation of decisions being made in 2017 and not too far from those being aspired to 800 odd years ago. Oil trade, commercialism in general, all meld into mind and ambitions and body eventually, stinking under the fabric of our sheets that was so mercilessly used as an excuse for murder and independence. It is testimony to the crown that Edward beat the Scots down eventually, and is the reality that such a consequence has to be achieved through success in Parliament, centuries after his death. Perhaps May should invade the SNP and slaughter them in battle. Bloody conquest of Brexit. At least that would be honest. Next, in Retrospective Rumors, a look at the comparison in the quest for justice in a modern world. Is the recent terrorist attack on Westminster a reminder of the past misdemeanours in regards to sabotage, or is it just a cry for help from a broken society? Whose army do we support in such an assertive endeavour? The conformist attitudes of government today, or the extreme actions of anarchism? Perhaps on reflection, the most impressive instances of anarchistic triumph in the 10th century can give us a clue as to where aggressive leaders are fielding their lead. Bear now his bloody cloak. Oh, this is almost as bad as the last one. Of the contempt. Oh, for fuck's sake. It is separate. What's that? God.
Get it, boy.